What's going on, everyone? This is Bunny Muffins. It's Friday, so that means new meta snapshot, which I'll be updating every single Friday for as long as I play Teamfight Tactics. Today, I'm going to do something a tiny bit differently. We're still going to go over all the top builds, but I'm going to add in all the regional differences that I've been seeing at the top level of play. This means the top 10 players in each region. I'm analyzing North America, Europe, West, and Korea. There are a lot of different techs that each region prefers over the other, and I'll get into why and how you can adapt this into your own play based on your itemizations and certain comps to avoid if something's being very popular in your region. Because next week, all this stuff can switch. What's popular in Korea could be popular in North America, and what's popular in North America now could go on to Korea, and what they played last week could be completely reversed. So without further ado, let's just get right into this. So starting at the top, one thing I've noticed is that compositions are so variable right now. This is probably due to the fact that you don't get punished for selling completed units at 4 and 3 costs, meaning that if you buy a Riven 2, for example, but she doesn't really fit in your composition, you can buy her for 12 gold, but sell her for 11. Previously, you'd only be able to sell her for, I think, around 5 gold. Maybe it was 7. Point being, it's very costly to upgrade units that aren't part of your composition before, but now that's no longer the case, so people are just playing whatever they get. They're using the rest of their gold to reroll to get 3 stars or to level up all the way to level 9, put in Thresh, put in all the late game bombs such as Gangplank, Urgot, etc. So that's one thing I've noticed. If you haven't made this adjustment to your playstyle yet, I'd suggest starting to do this, because again, you're not getting punished for completing units that aren't normally part of your composition but are passable. So if you play something that's passable that you got for free, it's going to be super strong. You're going to be able to snowball to level 9 or find your 3-star carry with your excess gold. So now back to the tier list. S tier, I think the only S tier comp right now is Cybernetics, though it is very, very close between the other A tier comps, but I think Cybernetics just eke out a tiny bit more than everyone else right now. This is because they have so many different options for carries. They have Vayne, they have Aurelia, they have Echo, they have Thresh, and it's super easy to transition into from the early game because you get Vayne so early and she's one of the main carries of the comp. You don't even need an item holder for her. You could just put items on her right away and start winning and don't even have to worry about any sort of transition for her items. Then once you add in everyone else, it's just way too easy to get to 6 Cybernetics. I talked about this earlier in my patch preview. I saw that they added Vayne, which means that there are 7 now, but they didn't really nerf the cybernetic trait. They made a little adjustments to it, but they added more attack damage for every cybernetic unit, which doesn't make sense to me at all. I think this needed a big nerf, but hey, we're here, and so as I predicted, cybernetics are super, super strong just because they gave a huge buff to them by adding a new champion, but they didn't really nerf the trait. So after that, we have sorcerers. So we have 2 sorcerer comps, sorcerer plus Riven or GP, and then mech pilot sorcerers. Next up is protectors, which we know from before, but people are playing it a little differently now. Rebels, Sniper, Blaster Brawler, Vanguard Mysitc, 6 Blademasters, and then the Star Guardian Sorcerer composition. So let's get into what the differences actually are. So first with Cybernetics, everyone's stacking Vayne. There's no surprise there. The items you want that are most important for this composition are Last Whisper and Infinity Edge on your Vayne. Everything else is completely secondary. Complete those 2 first. In every single region, every single player who got first place with Cybernetics, they had some variation of Last Whisper, i.e. Vayne, with varying items on everyone else. So I think it was like 90 to 95% of my games where I saw Cybernetics win was all i.e. Last Whisper on Vayne. Third item didn't matter too much. Aurelia items didn't matter too much. Echo items didn't matter too much. They did have a few like frontline items. For example, you really want Redemption, you really want Shroud, Zephyr, things of that nature. But again, i.e. Last Whisper for Vayne. So that means if you're playing Cybernetics and you're forcing them every game, you definitely want to go for Glove because that builds both of those items. Just a quick tip there. So now that we have that out of the way, North America and Europe really like playing Wukong and Thresh as the 2 complementary units to Cybernetics. However, in Korea, they much prefer the sniper trait by adding in Caitlyn in even their late game compositions. I've seen Caitlyn being used a lot in North America and Europe, but generally as just something to play in the early game. However, in Korea, they actually keep Caitlyn late into the game. So how can you use this information to your advantage? Well, if you're in North America or Europe, Last Whisper has slightly more value because Vanguard's in the game. You're also going to be more contested if you want Wukong for yourself. However, if you're in Korea, the addition of Caitlyn means that it's slightly harder to get Blitzcrank hooks and Zephyrs on the Vayne. This is because if you have Infiltrator Spatula on Aurelia, no one can really block the hooks for Vayne if Fiora's in the front line, which a lot of people do. This is why I like positioning Fiora in like the bottom left corner so that she eats the blitz hooks on the top right. However, in Korea, they're playing Caitlyn, so it's going to be more targets in the back line for you and maybe a little bit more distracting. Also, that means in Korea, against Cybernetics, it's less punishing to play in all attack damage compositions because they don't have Vanguard. So next up, we have the Sorcerer Ribbon GP build. This one is pretty popular everywhere. There's slight variations. I'll actually combine this with the Mech Sorcerer. So in Europe, they love playing Mech Sorcerer and 8 Sorcerer. So they don't actually play the comp listed here. This particular composition here is super popular in NA. What they do, you get 6 Sorcerers, you play Riven, and just pretty much play more Rivens or more Gangplanks. So I've seen someone have 2 Rivens or 2 Gangplanks in the same team, which is kind of funny to see, but obviously this unit is going to be doing a ton of damage with each of the Sorcerer buffs, because they're going to be constantly casting, they're going to be getting huge Gangplank ultimates that one-shot entire teams, or Riven's just going to be constantly ulting, getting a huge shield, and doing a ton of damage. So the version that's more popular in North America is the one you see here, Gangplank and Riven. I haven't seen too much Mech in North America. Mech is generally more played in Korea and Europe right now. So again, how can we apply this information to our games? Well, if people are playing Mech, what you want to do is build a Giant Slayer, because Mechs have a lot of health and Giant Slayer is great against units with a lot of health. This means Giant Slayer is less important if you're playing in North America. One way to counter this build in all regions is to actually build a Zephyr and put it in the front line, because if Riven or Gangplank or the Mech don't have Quicksilver Sash, you're going to get a free Zephyr on their front line, and that's going to be pretty much their main carry gone for the first few seconds of the fight. At the same time, if you are playing this composition, you might want to prioritize Quicksilver Sash on Riven. Gangplank doesn't need it as much because I'd much rather just have full damage on him, but if you're playing Riven, I highly suggest actually going a Quicksilver Sash rather than going full damage as you see here. But again, it really just depends on what items you get. People play 2 Rivens a lot of times, so what they do is they have QSS on one Riven, and then they have AP on another. It really just depends what items you get. But the most important item for both of these builds is Guardian Angel for your Gangplank and Riven. So that's one pattern you'll be seeing a lot here. Just a lot of Guardian Angels for this comp, and playing as many of these units that are broken with the Sorcerer buff as possible. Moving on to the Protector build. This one's changed a lot. People aren't playing 6 Protectors as much anymore. Now it's mainly revolving around this build right here. So you have around 4 Protectors, 2 Mystic, and 2 Celestial. And this is with the Protector Spat on Aurelion Soul. If you don't have that Protector Spatula, go ahead and add in Nico. Nico can also go in for Xin Zhao if you want to move the Warmogs from Xin Zhao to someone else later in the game, which will be super helpful if you get Urgot or Aurelion Soul and they really need that Warmogs in order to really shine as their 3rd item. But again, as you see here, we only have 6 units listed out. You can add in 2 or 3 more units. What can we do for those particular units? Well, first option is going for Mystic. This would give you Cassiopeia for battle cast, and this is useful when transitioning from Bard early game. So you could go from Bard to a Karma later on. And you really only want to go for Mystic if your lobby calls for a lot of magic resistance. I wouldn't really go for Mystic if you get them handed to you, just because, again, it's pretty useless trait unless people are actually running magic damage. So if you haven't connected the dots yet, if you're in a region where the Sorcerer builds are super popular, I'd highly recommend considering going a 4 Mystic build when you're playing Protectors or even any other composition in the game right now. So one thing you want to note in this comp is that Urgot items are never going to be perfect. You really want to make sure you get the Protector Spatula for Aesol and snowball the early game with your Xin Zhao. So Urgot items, while he does love Spear of Shojin, he loves Seraphs, he loves Rapid Fire Cannon, you're not going to be getting perfect items for him, so don't try to build them early game. Wait till you get Urgot and then itemize him later. This composition's most popular in North America, so if you're facing a lot of Protectors, go ahead and build a Giant Slayer, as that's going to be helping a lot in terms of your damage output. Other ways I've seen this comp lose is with Thresh pulling in a Blitzcrank that hooks their Urgot, or using an Infiltrator such as Aurelia with Infiltrator Spatula to jump on the Urgot and kill him pretty quickly. But other than that, you definitely just need a Giant Slayer. It's pretty much an auto win if you have it, but if you don't have it, you're probably going to lose to this composition. Next up, we have Rebels. Rebels are super strong and super popular pretty much everywhere. It's pretty much just a variant of the Jinx Carry build. So I believe I have Blaster Brawler listed out down here. The power level between these two are very, very similar, but Rebels are going to always be the stronger late game build. But Rebels at the same time are less adaptable. This Blaster Brawler comp, we should just combine these and just call them Jinx Carry, but this Blaster Brawler comp, it's pretty much just whatever units you hit with Jinx and Ezreal. So again, 2 people, you generally have an 8-man composition, so just add any 6 units in that fit with them, and you'll probably be good to go. What I like to do is play Chrono, play some Brawlers, and play some Legendaries. So If you happen to get the Rebels and just roll into all of them, go ahead and play Rebels because, again, that's always going to be the strongest build, especially if you have Guardian Angel GA for Gangplank. But if you don't manage to get that, just go ahead and play the Blaster Brawler build and you'll be doing just fine. Oh, one thing to note, no one runs 4 Blaster anymore in any region, so definitely you want to try to avoid that. One interesting late game variation to this particular build is dropping 2 brawlers such as Malphite and Vi, adding in Aurelion Soul, and then adding in another protector if you get a protector spat on Aesol. Sometimes those items drop in the carousels late game, and I've seen that a couple times from players in Korea where they just play protector Aesol even in this random Jinx build. Another great late game addition for the Blaster Brawler comp in particular is Thresh. Thresh is going to give you Chrono, so you could eventually replace your Blitzcrank and just play Thresh with Urgot to pull in a lot of people. Since again, you're not really looking for too many other late game bombs once you get Jinx. Gangplank's more of a luxury and you only build him if you have a Guardian Angel. So you could just play Thresh, put a lot of mana items on him, pull in as many Urgots and Sorakas as you can, and just have a blast from there. So now let's look into the Sniper build. Sniper's pretty popular everywhere. I'd say that most people in North America are running 4 Sniper, most people in Korea running 2 Sniper, and same for Europe. Europe's mainly running 2 Sniper as well. So again, how can we take advantage of this information? If you're a player in North America, you might want to get Zephyr on the front line because people generally do not build Quicksilver Sash on their front line. And as you can see here, there are only 3 frontline units. So if you Zephyr one of them, you're going to shred through the other 2 relatively quickly and then reach his back line right away. Also, since this build doesn't run any Mystics, maybe you could go some sort of Sorcerer build if you're seeing a lot of 4 Sniper builds. If the enemy team is running the 2 Mystic variation, and that's with Lulu and Karma instead of Ashe and Caitlyn, sometimes they add a Thresh in as well to keep the Chrono buff. What I like to play is playing a Blitzcrank against them in order to hook one of their priority targets. So in this composition, if you hook Ashe or Caitlyn, it doesn't really matter, but if you hook like a Karma or a Lulu on the back lines, on the bottom left and bottom right corners, those units actually help out their team a lot. Karma gives a great attack speed shield on one of the carries, and Lulu obviously is going to AoE CC some of your units, so hooking them is a great way to play against that particular composition. In Korea, I've also seen a couple of 4 Darkstar or 4 Vanguard builds with snipers. However, 4 Darkstar, and this is by adding in Xerath, Mordekaiser, and Karma, this build is more centric around Jhin, so as long as you have a Zephyr or some sort of infiltrator or some sort of way to kill him, such as by using Urgot with RFC, Jin's not going to be too much of an issue because he's their only source of damage. So as long as you position around them, that'd probably be the best way to beat the 4 Darkstar build of snipers. Now we're down to the B tier. B tier, all these comps are playable, as I said in my last meta snapshot, but they're not quite as strong as all the other builds as listed before. So when you're playing Vanguard Mysitc, you definitely want an RFC on Cassiopeia with blue buff and Morello Namicon. I forgot to add Rapid Fire Cannon here. I'll go ahead and add that sometime later. But you guys all know this build. This was probably the most popular build last week in North America, but right now it's declining in popularity because I think people figured out how to beat Cassiopeia, and it's pretty similar to beating the 4 Darkstar Sniper build that we were talking about earlier, because again, there's only 1 carry for this composition. So if you get like an Infiltrator on Cassiopeia, if you get an Urgot, if she doesn't have RFC, she's generally pretty easy to take care of. One thing I've noticed though is that this is super popular in Korea, so you'll probably be wanting to build Last Whisper a lot if you are playing on the Korean server, just to shred through the 4 Vanguards in the front and then reaching their back line right after that. Again, this is a very strong build. It's probably my favorite build so far because I love the concept of a stall comp, and it's just something we've never seen in TFT before, so I'm really happy that we have something like that now. So next up we have 6 Blademasters. I recently released a guide on how to play this, so I'll leave a link here on my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta, and I'll leave a link down in the description below. But I love this composition. I played it twice this week, and I pretty much forced the build because I was trying to make a guide for the video. I'll be honest, guys, sometimes I play just to get footage for a guide that I'm making, but even with bad items, I still did really well with it. This build revolves around carry on Master Yi and Zed. Zed is an addition to Rebels, so he's going to be a very strong unit to complement this build with Master Yi and Yasuo. Next up, you'll want 6 Blademasters. 6 Blademaster Spatula on Zed is absolutely ridiculous, and Master Yi has a lot of different flexible items he can use. So again, if you want to learn how to play this composition, go ahead and check the guide in the description link. So this composition is super popular in Korea. Many of the best players in NA and Europe were looking and scouting to see how they play. And It's still the most popular there, but it's being played a lot more in North America now. Europe hasn't quite favored this composition, at least the top players haven't, but I'm sure a lot of other people will be trying it out since it's picking up a lot of steam in recent weeks. So since this build isn't that popular in Europe, one thing to note is that bows will not be that contested on each carousel. This build loves RFC. It really likes one on Master Yi, preferably another RFC on Zed. So if you are looking to go a build that relies a lot on bows, such as Cybernetics, if you're going for Last Whisper, Jinx for all of her items require attack speed pretty much, you'll generally be safer on those types of carousels in Europe than you would be on North America or Korea. Another thing to note is that if you play Rebels, it could be quite hard to hit your Zed, Master Yi, or Yasuo if a lot of players are playing this composition, because sometimes you might have a level 1 Master Yi and Yasuo because they're all taken when you're playing a Jinx comp with 6 Rebels. So just something to keep in mind, if it's very popular where you're from, maybe try to avoid playing Rebels because again, they're going to be taking the attack speed items and taking some of your Rebels, and it might be more optimal to start playing something else. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the popular compositions. We do have the Star Guardians here, but it isn't being played too much. I've seen some builds with the Janna late game, but most of the Sorcerer builds right now are just going for Riven and Gangplank instead of going for the classical Star Guardian Sorcerer build. That's pretty much it for all the differences in each region. If you guys want to check out the full meta snapshot, go ahead and hop on to bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And again, we have the item priority here for each carousel. I have an item quadrant here if you're unsure of what to build. If you don't know how to read this, I explain it up here, but generally you want to build the items on the top right, try to avoid the ones on the bottom left. Let me know what you guys thought about this new format. I'll probably be analyzing regional differences every now and then, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months. I just think it's super interesting, especially in the beginning of the patch, where everyone's interpreting this new game completely differently. While some of the differences might not be that major between each region, a lot of the little nuances can be used to our advantage. So we should be taking advantage of every single advantage we can get in teamfight tactics because this is such a statistics-based game. I know I focus mostly on competitive content for teamfight tactics, but if you guys do enjoy comedic teamfight tactics posts, I highly suggest heading over to my Instagram at instagram.com/bunnymuffinslol, where I'll be posting a lot of funny stuff, hopefully multiple times a week, and we'll keep going from there. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.